Hi there. I'm here to tell you a little story about, well, how I consecrated this knife. But before I get into that, I should probably tell you a little bit about consecrating. So, consecrating, it's a Latin word, comes from con being with, sacre meaning sacred, so it's with the sacred. Once something is consecrated, it is no longer for mundane, profane, or vulgar purposes, it is sacred. So, from the system I use, the way begins with making sure the thing wants to be sacred. I'm an animist. I believe everything has its own anima. So I work with it, spend some time with it, see where it wants to go, what it has in mind, what's good for it. And once I've done that, then I start a cleansing process. Because whatever it was before, it's about to be something else. It is going to be with the sacred, no longer what it was, but dedicated to a sacred purpose. So take it through a cleansing process. And this could be a variety of things. It can be soap and water. It could be putting it under the moonlight. It could be putting it in a pile of herbs. It could be putting it with a whole bunch of other stuff that deals with this on its own. You also have to make sure that it's properly dedicated. And there's two main ways that I look at dedication because I grew up with a lot of dogs around me. So I tend to think of it as dedicated like a Labrador or dedicated like a Border Collie. Labradors tend to be very loyal to individuals, whereas Border Collies tend to be very focused on doing the job. They're very jobby. They do the job. They're very good at it, which makes a Border Collie mean that, you can take a Border Collie, go from, master to master. Border Collie doesn't care as long as he can continue doing the job. Whereas something happens with the master with a Labrador, that's it. That dog, he'll be loyal, till he dies. And, there's stories of those dogs just staying at the gravesite because that was their master. So the difference here is the tool dedicated to a person or is it dedicated to a purpose? So like the, Labrador and the Border Collie, sure, Border Collies can be loyal, but they love the job. And sure, a Labrador can be trained to do the job, but they love being loyal to someone. And, so there's not a clean line in between, but dedication is an important part. What they're dedicated to. Are they dedicated to a person? Are they dedicated to a purpose? What is why are you doing this? What is the thing going to be used for? That's an important part of the process. Now, when I started, I was with this group, and they were all about consecrating with blood. They loved the blood consecrations. That was one of the first things we learned, how to consecrate with blood. And by consecrating with your blood, you are connecting the thing directly to you. It is, because blood is powerful. Blood lines, blood feud, blood. Anytime you hear the word blood, there's a power to it. It is an individual power that flows within you, and it connects you to your ancestry. It connects you to who you are in a fundamental way. So when you use your blood to consecrate something, you are connecting you to it in a fundamental, essential way. Now, I refuse to believe that I'm a member of a religion that promotes or advocates cutting. Because right away, I was hearing all this, and I thought, okay, I have access to razor blades. And I was just about to try and cut myself to get some blood, and I thought, no, I'm not doing this. So I went to the drugstore and I got one of these things. It's this little thing, and it pops there. It's a thing diabetics use to check their blood sugar. And you cock the thing, you push the little button there, and a little pin pops out the end, pricks your finger, and you get just one perfect drop of blood, heals very quickly. Right away, I was like, okay, I'm going to just consecrate all my stuff. And so I was bleeding all over, stuff like that. And eventually I realized I'm a very active person. I am constantly doing things with my hands, and blood happens. So I don't really need to use that thing. I haven't used that thing in a really long time because in the course of a week, I'm going to bleed at some point just because, I'm going to be working with something, it's going to catch some way, and blood happens, especially if I'm working with a magical tool. Just, let's say, for instance, this one here, this is my athame cabinet right there. In the course of just this, I bought the blade itself from a place called Weird Shop in England. but the handle was unfinished when I got it. And the course of finishing that, there's a lot of sandpaper, there's a lot of little edges, the thing's got sharp bits. And at one point in the process, I got a drop of blood just from working on getting the thing to where I thought it was the perfect knife. This was my first athame. The group I was with, within the first year before initiation, we had to acquire our 4 core magical tools. This is the one I acquired. And so, getting some blood on that was quite easy. Just happened in the process. But there's other things you can do. Okay, so as part of the dedication ceremony, I had to perform a magical act. And dedication is before initiation. So what I chose to do was to make and dedicate a robe. We worked robed in this group, and I had just met Oberon Zell at Starwood and wanted something very wizard looking. So I made this one, made it all the right pleats, all the right fabric. It's got that sort of wizard look to it. And honestly, I haven't worn this thing in about 20 years because most groups these days don't really work robed anymore. And it's a great one though. I've got secret compartments in the arm handles. It's got all the stuff. So I wanted to consecrate it as the magical act for my dedication ritual. And I'd already done all that blood stuff, and I didn't really want to bleed on my robe, but that didn't feel right. So what I did, so I needed to cleanse it, and I wanted to cleanse it in the ritual. So there's this old story about using onions to draw out negativity. If someone is sick, they say, slice an onion, put it in the room, it'll draw out the sickness, it'll go into the onion, throw the onion away, the person will get better. Groovy, cool. So I used an onion to cleanse this. And being an onion, sliced onion right there in the ritual, there were tears. And so I used my tears to then consecrate the robe to my own personal energy. And I said appropriate words about the tears being connected to the emotions and how the dedication process was a deeply emotional process. And it really worked. So time goes by, and there are a lot of great knives in the world. And the best knife makers in all my travels I've ever run across are Omega Artworks. They made this knife right here. Omega Artworks, they're local, they're amazing. They're a family of amazing knife makers, blade makers. They make really amazing stuff. Not to dismiss the other people I've seen in my travels. For instance, I will always honor and cherish the Govanen sword that I have, and hold it and be true to his legacy and memory and carry it with honor. However, there's nothing quite like an Omega Artworks piece. Yeah. I didn't have to do a lot of cleansing on this thing. I mean, like, say, for instance, you have an athame that used to be a letter opener. You'll want to, cleanse, dedicate, and separate that from what it was. But with this guy, they did such a beautiful job with it to begin with because they know from their magic that it was already in pretty good shape before I ever had to touch it. So I've got this perfect blade. Actually, let's go into that a little bit because that was kind of a cool thing too. Because my wife gave me this as a gift. It was given and received with love. And she bought it at a Pagan Pride Day celebration, which makes it even better. Everything about this, from the way it was constructed, the people who constructed it, the way it was acquired, every bit of it is magical and important and done with purpose. This is a great knife. So, a while back, my mom died. It's okay. So it was not an easy passing for her. She was in a lot of, basically all night long. She was in that liminal state between life and death. And just sort of in and out, back and forth, and never knew where she was going to end up, when she was going to end up there. And throughout the entire process, she perspired a lot, like perspiration flowing out of her and drenching her sheets all around her. So After she passed, I took the pillowcase. I should also note that the day she passed, this went all through the night that she was perspiring into this pillowcase. When she actually passed, in the sky, at that moment, there was a ring of fire solar eclipse. So she was in that liminal state all night long between life and death. She passed in the liminality of a solar eclipse. So this was an incredibly, intensely liminal state. And that perspiration was wrapped up into this pillowcase right here. And so I was already in a ritual mindset because I wanted to be fully present. I was present physically, mentally, and spiritually at that moment. What they call ritual mindset, sometimes called liminal mindset, sometimes called priestly mindset. I was in that state. And the space was a liminal space. You can't get much more liminal than that. She had just passed in the space. So I took the knife, I quickly wrapped it up in the pillowcase, said an appropriate words of dedication. I don't remember the exact words, something to the effect of connecting this with the liminality of that moment and carrying this power and force forward within this blade. Consecration is all about things being sacred. That's the core of it, with sacred. And I loved my mother, and she loved me, and her death was a sacred moment. I want to honor my mother. I wanted to honor my mother. So wrapping the knife, it was a way for me to honor that moment. And it only took about 20 seconds. It's, death is busy. Honestly, as soon as someone dies, it's like instantly you have all this stuff you have to deal with. It's insane. I mean, you're in this whole emotional thing, and then it's like, and you have to clean out the space. All these things. But anyway, I wanted to honor that moment. And I hope that my mom realizes that in doing that, I am honoring her and the amazingness of her and what she went through. And after she passed, I also used some of her ashes to make a magic mirror so that she can continue to be a part of my life because I love my mom. Now, it just happens that every solar eclipse is happening at the time of the new moon. Coincidence? I think not. So, I was at the new moon doing something very liminal. New moon's already very liminal. And so I kept this thing wrapped up like that for the entire lunar cycle until the next new moon, at which point I unwrapped it and immediately used it in ritual. And this is part of the process. After something is consecrated, you have cleansed it, blessed it, taken it from what it was to what it will be. You have charged it in a meaningful way. But after it's all done, you have to use it. You have to set it to use and have it be used in a magical way. This completes the consecration process. And that's what I did. And that is how I consecrated this knife. Now, the downside of this story is that it is not replicatable. The entire thing happened because I'm a magical practitioner. I happen to have the tools with me. I have the know-how to do it and could do that on the fly in the moment just because the conditions were perfect to do it. I'm not saying this so that, you'll be like, well, I know someone who's about to die. No, that's the wrong lesson to get from this. The lesson is to learn the techniques so that you can adapt them to your own purpose. And consecration can be a very powerful magical act. So I hope that this works for you, and thank you for joining me.